Hey everyone, I'm Dark Quarter and welcome back to Katawa Shoujo. So last time we were talking to the nurse and told them about Emi's limp and her bad leg and what was going on. And unfortunately I also told him that we were dating. So he took that in stride. He's told us to tell her to see him, and we pretty much did that at lunch, but we were going to do that anyway because kind of worried about Emi. And Ren was trying to remember what it was like to sleep or whatever. And so Emi agreed to go see the nurse. And then later on we decided to go to the library because there was nothing to do and talk to Yuko. And she talked about finding one of the book thief's stashes, which is weird, but okay. It was in the boys' dorm, apparently. And she wanted me to be a spy to find the thief. I think it's Kenji, but who knows. And at the library, we got a call from Emi, kind of frantic, anxious sounding. It said, "Can you come over?" And so now we're over there, gonna see what's going on with Emi. Perhaps at some point I would have stopped to think about the time, or how suspicious it looks for a guy to enter the girls' dorm at this hour. Except right now I'm just concerned with getting to Emi and finding out what's wrong and how I can help her. I knock on the door and I'm greeted with a subdued, "Come in." Something is very wrong as I stare at the scene before me. A made bed. It's kind of creepy. Emi's there, yes. But she's in a wheelchair. And her legs are missing. I glance around the room and see them sitting in a corner, looking like they've been thrown there. So she doesn't have her legs anymore. Emi responds to my entrance with a lopsided grin that is both pleased to see me and completely, utterly heartbroken. "Hi, Hisao." It looks like she's been crying, but if she was, she stopped now. I notice that I'm a little out of breath, having taken the stairs 2 at a time in order to get here. My heart doesn't seem to mind the strain, though. I file this happy fact away for later consideration. Like when I'm not staring somewhat dumbstruck at my girlfriend in a wheelchair. Realizing I'm not still responded to her greeting, my brain lurches into gear. "Emi, what happened?" "Wish I should have listened to you, Hisao. My leg's got a nasty infection. I'm not allowed to run at it for at least a couple of weeks." She gives a bitter laugh that shouldn't be coming from her. "Hey, I can't even walk on it. I could have used a crutch and cut both of my legs, but I didn't see the point." "Why, Hop, you can't run on one leg. At least this way I can still, I don't know, roll fast or something." Yeah, that's good, right?" My awkward attempt to look on the bright side seems appreciated, but not really effective. Emi shrugs again. "It's just kind of a nuisance. I mean, we can't even eat up on the roof now. No wheelchair access. That's not a big deal, right? I mean, we can still eat together. That's the important thing." That last-sided grin again. It hurts to look at. "I suppose so, yeah. But like I said, it's a nuisance. I mean, I haven't lately used a wheelchair in..." She thinks for a minute. "Maybe 7 years? Something like that anyway. A long time. I'm afraid I'm a bit out of practice." "Well, fortunately it's only temporary, right?" Emi nods. "Oh yeah, of course. It's not like I've lost him permanently. But it's a pain in the ass all the same." I nod sympathetically. There's not much else I can do, after all. What am I going to do? Say I told you so? Even though I actually did tell you so? Although I did tell her to get that leg looked at. Yeah, you did. But by the time I noticed, it was too late anyway. "Do you need help with anything?" That is, can I help with anything?" Emi shakes her head and there's a bit of her usual grin back. "No, I can manage fine by myself. Although if you want to help me over to my bed, it would save the trouble of rolling over there myself." I blush in spite of myself. Emi giggles. "You're such a prude, Hisao." "I'm not a prude. I just wouldn't want to take advantage of a young woman such as yourself. It's ungentlemanly." I wheel Emi's chair to her bed and easily scoop her up and deposit her there. She quickly sorts herself out and sits on the side. She's actually a little heavier than she looks. It would be rude of me to observe this aloud, of course. Go ahead. What's the worst that could happen? "Man, you're kind of heavy." And you said it anyway. Emi hits me with a pillow. Ass. Just saying is all. Must be all that running. At the mention of running, Emi's grin falters slightly. Well, I guess I won't have to worry about that for a bit, eh? Maybe I'll lose some weight. That's what you do to lose weight, right? Size physical integrity. I'm pretty sure that's what the nurse would recommend. Speaking of which, are you going to still be showing up in the mornings? I'd hate to run a lot. Ah, shit. Emi's sudden interjection, more disquieted muttering than anything too profane, causes me to look over in shock. She's leaning forward, trying to cover the fact that she's crying by covering her eyes with a hand. Of course, the subdued sobbing makes it pretty obvious that she's crying. Hey, I'm sorry. Forget I said anything, okay? Nice job, Hisao. I place a hand gingerly around her and pull her close. I can think of nothing else to say or do. How do you comfort someone who's just lost her legs again? Emi wraps me in a hug and stays that way for a while. Sorry. Pretty bad at this whole comforting thing, I guess. Don't say that. I'm fine, really. Her voice is slightly muffled by my chest. I pat her head reassuringly. That's the spirit, right? You'll get through this fine, I know it. Besides, I'm here to help you, remember? Emi lifts her head and stares at me with tear-stained eyes. Can you? Can you really? She's grinning lopsidedly and something sparkles in her gaze. I can't tell if I'm being mocked or not. Cool. Of course, I mean, sure, you're a bit heavy, but... My witty comment is cut off by the sudden press of Emi's lips on mine. I'm caught off guard and I'm rewarded by hitting my head on the wall behind her bed. Ow. That would hurt. Emi pulls back, trying to look concerned rather than like she's about to laugh. Are you okay? Sorry. I rub my head ruefully and grin back at her. Call me off guard there. Is that going to become a habit? Am I going to be lectured by Shizune Misha more? At the mention of the duo, Emi giggles. Honestly, thoughts too. If I didn't know why, I'd be utterly confused as to why she hangs around with someone so bossy. Which one are we talking about? You know exactly which one to say. Misha's hardly bossy. So what's the reason then? Huh? The reason why Misha hangs around Shizune? Emi waves off my question with a smile. No idea. I say. Anyway, you seem to be forgetting the original question, don't you? Oh yeah, I guess I am. You wouldn't mind giving a guy a little warning, would you? Otherwise I'm liable to wind up with a concussion. I emphasize the point by rubbing at the back of my head. Emi giggles madly. You could wear your helmet. Some kids here do, you know. Or I could just take revenge. Oh, what is with Emi's face? I grab a pillow from beside me and whack Emi over the head. And then she faints and she has to be taken to the Pokemon Center. Emi topples off the bed and lands on the floor with a thump. Her arms promptly reappear on the bed and she manages to pull herself back up. She really has a surprising amount of strength in that little body. Her face is turned downwards and away from mine, making me think I might have accidentally hurt her. Emi, you okay? You didn't hit your... A hand shoots up and grabs my collar. She pulls me in with a sharp tug, her face now barely an inch away from mine as she grins cheekily. Emi? And then she bunks me on the head, and then I have to go to the Pokemon Center because I black out. She gives me a sharp headbutt, our foreheads making quite a loud thud. And then I lose consciousness, and she grabs my kidney and runs. I sit back and rub my now sore head as Emi smirks victoriously. How's that for revenge? No fair. You can't take revenge for revenge. For someone missing most of her legs, Emi's surprisingly agile. I swipe at her, but she deftly rolls out of the way and lands a hit with her pillow. Oh, another pillow fight? Guys, you know what happened last time. Of course the odds are against her. I can stand up for starters. Oof. What is going on here? It's Emi. Guess I can't after all. Emi seems to have effectively tripped me up and is now sitting primly astride me as I lay on my back. I'm not even sure how she managed it. I win. Her eyes twinkle mischievously. I've been thoroughly defeated and by a girl that's a fraction of my size at that. Then again, being defeated doesn't seem quite so bad. Emi being positioned over my waist isn't something that I or my body can ignore easily. I open my lips to speak, but Emi's head darts down before I can get so much as a word out. I gave no resistance as she presses her mouth to mine. Not that I'd want to. This is different somehow. More like an alien than Emi. She pulls back, nips at my lower lip, and reinitiates the embrace. Her tongue darts inside my mouth, exploring. I can feel a warmth spreading through my body as my heart begins to beat faster. Oh, sounds like things are getting serious here. My mind starts to go foggy, and I become vaguely aware of my hand traveling up Emi's blouse. Emi gasps as I reach her breast, and then there's a giggle, and then... I stare up at a grinning Emi. Told you, that makes my second win now. What? That doesn't count, you used feminine wiles. I was fair and level in war, right? Ah, you're even blushing. I didn't know you were a blusher, Hisao. You were blushing too, you know, probably because of your prudish ways. Even I've got to admit this is a stupid thing to say to a woman who's currently straddling me and has been, up until a few seconds ago, playing tonsil hockey with me. Probably. A prude, am I? Well then, let's see what blushes first, shall we? Not sure whether the tone of her voice terrifies or arouses me. That question is quickly made rather moot. Oh, I'm definitely going to have to censor that. In a motion of practiced ease, she peels her blouse off and tosses it carelessly aside. Her brown skirt quickly followed onto the floor. Okay, things are getting real now. Ha! I fight the urge to blush. It's a rather hard task. Escalation, is it? My own shirt follows suit, albeit with some difficulty thanks to my position. Emi mock yawns. You'll have to try harder than that. Ah! My hands gently caress Emi's bare skin, causing her to shiver. It would seem that my hands are acting on their own again. If our physician had let me, I'd probably have finished her undressing for her. I start to say something about how Emi's starting to blush, but both of us are very rapidly reaching the edge of something very barely holding us back. Conversation grinds to a halt, and I feel my arms losing energy. Neither of us, however, are prepared for this sudden new sensation. An indescribable heat surges through me, coming from both myself and, it seems, Emi as well. With one hand on my chest to steady herself, and another holding mine to make sure that I can't have my way with her body again, she looks quite pleased with herself. And then, after a moment's hesitation, she moves. And she moves again. And again. As she moves, Emi's breath hitches. My breathing is starting to come faster and more raggedy as well. Emi's body shivers and shudders against mine, and I can feel her starting to lose her balance. It must be harder for her to keep steady because she's missing her legs. I steady her as best I can, cupping my hands around her backside. It's firm and taut. Makes sense considering how much she runs. The potential power in those muscles makes them flex as she responds to my touch. What I fail to take into account is the fact that my attempt to steady Emi kind of slides her forward and, well, it feels amazing. Her panties slide easily against my trousers, and it doesn't take us long to figure out a rhythm. Oh, I like rhythm games. But Emi refuses to keep to it, going now fast, now slow, now pausing for what feels like an eternity. Not sure whether she's doing this as a toy with me or if it's to make her feel better, but I'm well past caring. The heat between us is growing more intense, and I can't hold back a gasp. The noise only seems to drive Emi along. I begin to punctuate her movements with some of my own, which causes her modest breast to bounce in time with my movements. Her breath begins to come faster as we continue, my own breathing becoming equally quick. With her eyes closed, her lips purse expectantly. I just manage to lift myself up for a few moments, our mouths seeking one another, her chest sliding against mine as our sweat mingles. As I flop back down, my trousers are soaked with sweat. I would take them off if it didn't mean stopping what we're doing. And I don't want to stop what we're doing. Stop this growing pressure, this tickling in the back of my brain. Emi is sliding faster and faster, panting heavily, her voice seemingly unable to convey what she's feeling. Her body, on the other hand, is doing a fine job. Suddenly, she moves a little more erratically as my own breath hitches in my throat, ending in a final desperate thrust that sends me over the edge into a surging feeling I didn't know existed. All right. My mind blanks, fills with white noise, and I succumb to the feeling of climax. For a few seconds, everything else in the world falls away except for this amazing feeling of Emi and I together. And then it passes. The white noise clears and I am left staring up into the eyes of the girl atop me. For a few minutes neither of us speaks. The sound of our breathing fills the room, our chests heaving from the experience. She eventually, reluctantly, shifts off of me and sits against the wall. I join her. So, did I blush? I didn't notice. Did I? Emi shrugs, still breathing a little heavily. Didn't notice either. Well, maybe we should... I need to use your window. My first instinct is to hide, but then I realize that I'm still utterly exhausted and sitting next to a topless Emi, so there's no running anyway. Oh, here's Rin. I think she might notice this, even Rin. Rin's eyes pass over Emi and me and focus on the window. There was a cloud. Cloud? Rin nods. I was watching it from my window, but it didn't stay in my window. So I need to use your window. Emi shifts a little, causing me to cough in order to cover up a giggle of my own. How long do you need the window for? We're, busy. This time I can't contain my laughter. Ren ignores both Emi and me and peers out the window. Her shoulders slump and she looks disappointed. It changed into something else. Disappointing. Emi is having trouble keeping a straight face. Sorry to hear that, Rin. Could we have a little privacy now, please? And then she slides back to her room. Ren shrugs as if to say, Can you? And hooks her foot around the door, pulling it closed behind her. Well, I mean, if she really wants to join, she can, I guess. I don't know. She didn't seem that surprised. We both dissolve into raucous laughter, unable to deal with Ren's bizarrely timed visit any other way. After our laughter dies down, I look to Emi. We're both a total mess. Well? Emi raises an eyebrow. Well? Again? Emi grins and laughs, and then she nods. We should probably ditch the clothes this time. That would probably be more comfortable. Just guessing. Katawa Shoujo, brought to you by... something I can't even think of, because... wow. I guess they... figured out what to do. The sunlight breaks through my window shortly before my alarm ruins the morning silence. I feel sore. Well, when you do it 20 times in one evening, you're gonna be sore. The events of the previous evening suddenly intrude upon my consciousness, and I find myself blushing. That was an eventful evening, and it explains perfectly the soreness in my lower back. The walk back, as I recall, had been rather tense. My trousers having been soiled, I had washed them off in the bathroom before going back to my room. But there was still a fairly obvious-looking stain on the front. Fortunately for me, the only person I ran into on my way back was Kenji, and he didn't notice a thing, well, apart from my being in the general vicinity. Of course, he had asked how the night went and whether or not I'd learned anything of importance. I don't even know if I opened my mouth to answer. I was too tired to care. And this morning I'll admit that I'm feeling pretty worn out. Still, Emi had promised to meet me at the track, and I'd hate to disappoint. She is indeed waiting for me when I arrive, doing her best to look cheery despite the fact that she's sitting in a wheelchair. It's okay, she's Professor X. She can deal with it. I wave to her and begin stretching. You're early. Emi frowns and shakes her head. Ridiculous. You're late. Overslept at you. All tuckered out. Well, at least she seems more like her old self. And as expected, she doesn't seem that shy about mentioning our previous activities. Hey, you're lucky I could show up at all. All that cardiovascular activity last night, nearly thought I'd have to see the nurse afterwards. Emi laughs out loud, then her face suddenly becomes more concerned. I know, I just added a more there. Anyway. Hey, that's not the... I mean, you're not... Go on, spit it out. It's just that it would be hard to explain if you had an episode while we were... Oh. Now that she mentions it, it really is a legitimate concern. Certainly hadn't thought of it last night, of course. Other, more pressing concerns had been at hand. Well, I don't think anything we do is going to be any more of a strain than these morning runs, and our hand of us fine, so... Emi considers this point. A devious light appears in her eyes. Oh, I don't know about that look, Emi. Are you planning something? Say. The light vanishes and Emi grins ruefully at me. I can't help but feel vaguely suspicious. Yeah, I think I would too. I seem to have forgotten a pair of gloves. What do you need gloves for? Emi indicates a chair upon which she is seated. For this, of course. Sure, the regular moving around is all well and good without them, but I want to be able to get a good workout. And to get that kind of speed, you got to have gloves if you don't want blisters. So what, are you whistling at me then? Do I have to carry it down? Emi thinks for a minute, or pretends to think. If I remember right, there's a spare pair or two in the track shed. So she does seriously want to do it then. But in her normal school uniform, I'd have expected her to wear a gym outfit for something like this. Wait, what are they doing here? Emi looks askance at me. Seriously? You can't think about why your shed full of track supplies at the school for the disabled would have racing gloves? Well, when she puts it that way, I suppose that makes perfect sense. Hey, I'm still getting used to this place. Give me a break, huh? I guess I got another slide this time. Oh, come on, I'll need your help. Can't imagine what for, but then again, I didn't have a clue why racing gloves would be in the shed, so I'm not willing to press the issue. Emi navigates her way to the shed easily enough, though I can hear her grumbling under her breath. It's actually kind of cute. I hurry a little to reach the door first. Opening it will be easier for me than for her. The door opens and Emi starts to wheel inside, only to come to a sudden halt at the doorway. Seems the door sill is slightly too high for her to get over by herself. But she keeps trying. She makes a few runs at it unsuccessfully before crossing her eyes and glaring at the offending object. Why would crossing your eyes help? Stupid wheelchair. Hisao, can you give me a hand here? Sure, no problem. It's a simple enough matter for me to bump Emi over to the doorway, jostling her slightly. Hey, easy there. Whoops, sorry. It's about this time that I fail to notice where I'm going and run Emi's chair into a mat. And then she tips over, and she has to go to the hospital. She gives a startled yelp and topples forward out of her chair. There's a moment of silence as I gaze in horror upon what I've done, and Emi glares at me. Hisao. Yes? Promise me you'll never work at the hospital. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Emi giggles and holds up a hand. Would you kindly help me back into my chair, Hisao? Oh, there's that would you kindly. I guess I have to obey. As I bend down to pick up Emi, she grins in triumph and pulls me into a kiss that quickly has us both entirely unconcerned about getting her back into the chair. In fact, as I move to a more comfortable position, I confess that the chair is pushed out the door, which, startled by the passage, swings shut. Okay. I guess she's got something in mind. Well, at least we've got privacy now, which is a good thing as my hands work quickly to remove Emi's blouse and skirt. I'm starting to discover that she's forgotten to put her bra on today. Did she plan this? It's entirely possible, knowing Emi. Her arms hook under mine and rest on my shoulders as I kiss my way down Emi's neck, pausing to give special attention to a spot right where the neck meets the shoulder that I'd found last night. You've gotten pretty good at I do try. Emi pushes on my chest insistently, and I draw back with a puzzled expression. I've got a confession, Hisao. Oh? I don't like you, I only like Rin. Sorry. Having pulled back, I decided instead to focus my attention on her breast. Of course you do. As she attempts to speak, her words are interspersed with giggles that I find incredibly cute. I don't, actually, well, wear gloves. My own reply is rather mumbled into her chest instead of being addressed to her face. Should have known. Words quickly become irrelevant. Emi's movements are almost frantic, as if she's been holding something back since we met this morning, and now she has an outlet. I'm very nearly caught off guard by her aggressiveness, feeling her nearly rip my shirt off, the way she seems to vibe to be in the dominant position. For my part, I confess that I'm caught up in her attitude as well, fighting back, rolling and wrestling even as I caress her breasts, even as her fingers dig into my shoulders, and I lose track of where we are. So much so that I roll right off the mat and land on something small and rather hard. Is it Rin? It's Rin, isn't it? Oh. Emi is still flushed and breathing a little heavily, peers at me and bursts into laughter. I'm sorry, are you alright? Yeah, I think so. Not sure what I landed on though. It was Rin. I reached under my back and pulled the offending object out, inspecting it closely. Personal lubricant, lemon flavored. Wait, what? Emi's eyes shoot upwards and she begins, if possible, to laugh even harder. Somehow I don't think this isn't track related. Oh man, I know whose that is. What? It's the track captain's. Ah, my old nemesis. Or, kind of. How'd you know it is? It appears that I've asked a stupid question, or at least Emi thinks so. Because he's the one who told me the track shed was a good place for, what did you call them? Clandestine encounters? Oh, he invited you to one or something? Emi bursts into more laughter. I confess the sight of a naked Emi laughing is oddly beautiful. I feel an eagerness to end the conversation and get back to what we were doing, despite my rather pointed questioning. I say, the track captain's gay. Huh. Really? And here I initially thought you two were a couple. Well, I did have a crush on him when I first joined up, but he wasn't interested. Obviously. But we are good friends, I guess. I mean, he told me all about this, you know. I hesitate to ask. And I do, but I ask anyway. But what does he need the leave for anyway? There's no other guys at this school. I mean, he doesn't, how the hell does Emi always manage to not blush? Obviously, he uses it for, you know. I know. I try to suppress a snicker. Jeez, look at Emi's face. Assuming I haven't covered it up with the rest of her. I fail. Emi's giggling too. And he tells you about all this? Emi shrugs. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't he? Everyone tells me this. It's kind of wild about the whole thing. Since it's a feeling that can't be beat. Uh-huh. The air in the track shed seems charged with some kind of horrible curiosity. That's interesting. Suppose I have to take his word for it. Well. Birds outside stop chirping. The wind dies down. Somewhere a man is drinking a cup of coffee. He freezes with the cup at his lips. We could. Maybe. Try it. Oh, Emi. My jaw suddenly and spontaneously unhinges and hits the floor. What? Emi is finally blushing, rubbing the back of her head ruefully. Well, it's just that we really can't do what we did last night, you know. It wouldn't be safe, you know. I mean, it wasn't exactly a great idea last night. So, you know, we could try this to see if it is as good. Well, yeah, basically. Huh. Okay, I am gonna block out that whole entire thing. Trust me. Okay. Careful. You sure about this? I'm pushing behind Emi, who is looking back over her shoulder, looking a little flushed. Well, obviously, once we decided to go ahead with this idea, we had to get back into the mood. That accomplished, we emptied the bottle of lube, and the entire thing? Here we are. Yes, I'm sure. Come on, before I calm down and think too much about this. Emi's breathing is still coming a little heavily, and her response is almost impatient. Which is to be expected, I suppose. We were both so close, and this is kind of delaying things. I think we've both gone temporarily insane. Judging by what I'm seeing, yeah, probably. At least that's going to be my claim from here on out. I try hard not to think about the specifics of what I'm about to get myself into. Well, it kind of looks like you're already into it to me. Not that anyone else can see, but, yeah, trust me. There's no way this is going to be very clean. You think? Taking a breath that is as much for me as it is for her, I enter slowly. There's a lot of resistance, and it's like both our bodies are reluctant to actually go through with it. Oh, I wish you guys could see Emi's face, but I am sure that I'm blocking it out. Oh, yeah, just, okay. Yeah. Emi's whole body tenses, and as I'm only partially in by this point, it feels surprisingly good, if a bit odd. Emi, on the other hand, looks uncomfortable. I would say so. The expression is almost comical. Yeah, that's one word for it. Comical, sure. Should I stop? Emi's breath hitches in her throat, and it seems to take a few seconds longer than it should to formulate a reply. No, keep going. It just feels weird. She giggles. I can't blame her. I'm surprised that I even managed to form a sentence. It's hot. Feels exceedingly odd. The lid glistens unnaturally. Probably because it's not natural. It makes me uncomfortable. I continue to work my way inside her, working slowly and listening carefully to Emi's breathing. I reach my limit and pause. Emi looks back again, biting her lower lip. Are you going to try moving, or are we just going to sit here feeling silly? No, I just wanted to give you a chance to adjust. This doesn't make any sense. How did we even decide to do this? Well, I could rewind the video and show you, but I'm not gonna. I don't think there's really any adjusting to this, Hisao. Try moving, maybe it'll feel better. She sounds doubtful, but certainly unwilling to admit defeat now that we've come so far. I begin a slow motion that seems to work well for both myself and Emi as she closes her eyes in an attempt to concentrate on this new feeling. As I begin to find a rhythm, I begin to feel that familiar falling awake sensation I got yesterday. I close my eyes and try to lose myself in the feeling, except it doesn't seem right. Emi's not making any noise. I learned very quickly yesterday that Emi is somewhat less than quiet when she's enjoying herself. As I open my eyes, I see that Emi is trying to get into things, but it just doesn't seem to be working for her. Her eyes are closed and she's biting her lip, but it seems to be out of toleration rather than enjoyment. A sort of, well, this was a failure, but hopefully it'll be over soon look. I'm caught in a bit of a situation here. In truth, I don't want to stop. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be doing much for Emi, or if it is, it's coming on far slower than I am. I feel bad. I want Emi to enjoy this too. Okay, well, that's an option. I reach one arm around to tease at Emi's chest, which startles her. This in turn causes her to tighten around me considerably, causing a wave of pleasure to blindside me. My gasp seems to amuse Emi, but her grin quickly turns to a gasp as I move my other hand casually down her front and begin to stroke gently at the soft patch of hair between her legs. The motion of my own hips increases as my hands' ministrations to Emi's front bring back the gasps and yelps that I'm used to. I concentrate only on the feelings of my hands, one now slick and sliding, the other on skin soft and responsive. Goosebumps on her flesh, shivers and sweats, as her own building climax causes her to tighten, until finally I can't possibly... Oh god, I'm sorry, I'm not going to. I give a final thrust, my fingers tense around Emi's nipples, dive between her legs. And then there's a flash of light, and we both fall unconscious. Emi's back spasms, and she arches up, a high girlish cry that echoes off the walls, and I feel the wave of my own climax annihilate all other sensations in my body. Emi's arms give out, and she falls forward, rather violently, disengaging us and pulling something dear to me in the process. Okay. That might hurt. The sudden switch from pleasure to pain causes me to lose my balance, and I fall forward on top of Emi. Yeah, you're kind of attached. Ow. Ow. Yeah. I quickly roll off Emi and prop myself up, breathing heavily and trying to ignore the pain in my crotch. Emi yelps a little as she rolls over. She grabs a couple of the tissues we kept handy earlier and cleans up before getting her panties back on and awkwardly laying against the wall. Still breathing heavily, I decide to sit against the wall next to her. The feeling of the cool concrete against my sweating back is a welcome sensation. That hurt at the end. Yeah, it was probably not a great idea. Emi squirms in order to try and sit down beside me without too much pain. Judging by her wincing, it doesn't really work. I'm going to have words with the captain. He was clearly lying. The utter and absolute ridiculousness of the situation suddenly hits, and I begin laughing. Emi shakes her head and begins laughing with me. Hey, Hisao. Yeah? We're never doing this again, right? Yeah, I think my curiosity is satisfied in this one. Emi nods, satisfied. Good. I think we should maybe stick to the basics, don't you? I mean, most of this is new to me anyway. What you mean, most? Emi grins impishly. I'll never tell. An unpleasant thought strikes me. Even more unpleasant is the thought of having to ask Emi about it. Still, after what we've just done, it should be a cakewalk. Hi, is there a sink? I kind of like to, wash off a little. Emi's jaw drops. In the sink? Well, there's not really any way else to do it, is there? And I want to avoid a smell that the nurse might notice. This is the most awkward conversation I've ever had. You're right. Yeah, it's on the back wall. There might just be some soap too. Thanks. There is in fact a little hand soap, which is better than nothing. No towel though, guess I'll just have to drip dry. All finished? Yeah, that'll do for now. It's not like I'm not going to take a shower to recite the nurse. Glad to hear it. Now help me find my clothes, you'll toss them somewhere. Hey, you were no better. How am I supposed to explain that hole in my shirt, huh? Yeah, sorry, I got a little excited earlier. Yep. It takes some time, but finally we're both more or less clothed. There's a frantic moment where neither of us knows where Emi's wheelchair is, but I recall it going through the door and rescue it. I'll be more careful going through the door this time, would you? Bumps are not my friend right now. I'm so sorry we tried this. Emi shrugs and grins. Well, it was worth a shot, right? And anyway, it was good exercise, right? Can't argue that. Okay, that seems like a good place to stop. I recorded this for quite long enough today. I couldn't find a good place to stop for obvious reasons. So, yeah, that happened. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as they did. Even though you probably won't see a thing. Well, after that, I think it's time to say thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being cool, and I'll see you next time.